Hello everyone, this is Anthony Smith and I'm doing interviews with retired and former SWCC operators. This is titled Interview Number 20. We're covering some of the things within the operator syndrome framework. We're talking to SBC retired Brian McCrea, and we're also talking about SWCC, traumatic brain injury, and major orthopedic injuries. And here is Brian. All right, whenever you're ready, man.
Okay, my name is Brian McCrea. I'm a retired SWCC chief, and I did 20 years in the Navy, 15 years as a SWCC, class 23, SWCC 23. That was in December of '97. I went Special Boat Unit 12. First deployment was Mark 5 deployment to the Middle East, and then I did a couple more deployments, one to Guam, and then Ark Bravo at Okinawa, on the ship, and then the training department for I think 2 to 3 years, something like that, and then did a couple more deployments, one to Africa, one to one to Africa, and then one to the Philippines. And that was my last deployment to the Philippines, and lots of trips in between for training and what have you. And then I went to Naval Special Warfare Unit 3 in Bahrain. So I finished up my career at Unit 3, SWCC in Bahrain, as a country engagement officer, and then retired out of Bahrain, and then went to work as a government contractor, also operating boats, for 2.5 years over in Bahrain, and then left that job and came back to the United States, and I've been splitting my time between Arizona and Wyoming doing jobs here and there, but nothing boat related since then.
Interview number 20 is a testimonial of Brian's medical records and conditions. He answered questions from the following questionnaire formats and gave permission to produce this presentation and share it openly. We covered the operator syndrome scale, the GAT-7 scale, PLC-5 scale, PHQ-9, the NSI neurobehavioral symptoms inventory, and a SWCC background questionnaire. So Brian was in the Navy for 20 years. He spent 15 of those years as a SWCC operator. He was in SWCC class 26, graduated in '97. He did 5 SWCC, full SWCC deployment cycles. He served at SBU 12, then became SBT 12, and he was at NSW 3, Unit 3, over in Bahrain. He worked on 11-meter ribs and the Mark 5s. He did 15,000 hours of SWCC boat time and has an estimated 1.8 million weight-pounding events, possibly related to mTBI. So Navy SWCC is a special class of elite naval warriors who have been a decisive force behind some of America's most important secret missions. Special boat operations have unique and often deadly challenges due to the combination of operating powerful, sophisticated machines designed for speed and stealth in some of the planet's most inhospitable environments. The average SWCC career operator experiences mTBI and major orthopedic injuries over the course of their career in peacetime and in war. And Naval Special Warfare conducts missions in over 70 countries, 365 days a year. The sum of SWCC injury does not accumulate until the operator retires. Before we talk more about the interview, we need to briefly discuss operator syndrome. Operator syndrome is not a diagnosis. It is a qualitative, descriptive framework of a nexus of symptoms and illnesses, and it was coined by Dr. Christopher Free. There's a DOI link to it there, and we're going to be talking about operator syndrome and as it pertains to SWCC operators. So operator syndrome is a nexus of psychiatric illnesses and disorders along with chronic major orthopedic injuries as defined in the literature. Operator syndrome affects all SOF forces, that's all special operations forces from every major branch, due to the nature of our job and our training and our deployment cycles and our high op tempo There's a list of different soft units right there throughout the branches, and SWCC is included in this group of soft operators. So these are all the different issues under operator syndrome in the framework. Um, Everything that you see here in red are the things that Brian is currently dealing with. He does have a lot of symptoms of traumatic brain injury, mostly post-concussion symptoms. He has a lot of sleep disturbances. He goes to sleep, can't stay asleep. Some severe sleep apnea, severe chronic pain, joint pain, orthopedic problems, headaches, some mild depression issues, some anger issues, worry, rumination, and stress reactivity, some mild family and community dysfunction, mild to moderate sexual health, ED, that type of thing. Some hypervigilant, memory, concentration, and cognitive impairments, vestibular and vision impairments. Some existing issues common among operators. Kind of that mindset that discounts the future. Worried about the TBI and all the symptoms and the medical issues he has, and how rapid is it going to degrade, and what the future looks like, and those types of fears with these invisible wounds. So here are some of Brian's comorbidities due to SWCC boat operations. TBI and post-concussion symptoms. He does have a lot of that. He has no diagnosis. He is in the process of going to a TBI clinic, either Tulane or home base. His brain MRI showed no significant findings. He does have some anxiety, no diagnosis, depression, no diagnosis. He does have sleep apnea. The VA covers the CPAP, but he doesn't have a rating. I've run into this a lot with veterans. Insomnia, has extreme difficulty staying asleep. He usually wakes up around 2 or 3 and then can't go back to sleep. He has headaches and migraines, no rating. Hypervigilance is moderate. Short-term memory loss is pretty severe. He has concentration difficulties, and dizziness and clumsiness. Okay, some other issues are mental fatigue. His C-spine, he has C2 through C3 fused. He has pain in his L-spine, sensitivity to light and noise, vision problems, which are rapidly getting worse, according to his doctors, numbness in his feet, severe numbness in his hands and his fingers. He has allostatic overload, chronic joint pain, anger issues, higher irritability issues, difficulty relaxing. He has had some issues with tachycardia, and he has high levels of concern for his future regarding memory and cognitive decline, which every other SWCC does as well. The following are symptoms experienced while operating high-speed SWCC boats. Brian experienced fatigue due to weight paddling on SWCC boats. He experienced dizziness due to weight paddling on SWCC boats. He's seen stars and had spots in his vision due to weight paddling on SWCC boats. He's experienced whiplash due to weight paddling on SWCC boats. He's experienced confusion, lack of focus, and concentration due to weight pounding on SWCC boats. He's experienced whole body weight pounding and whiplash at speeds of 65 miles per hour. He's experienced weight pounding in seas at and above 10 feet. And he's experienced orthopedic injuries due to weight pounding on SWCC boats. Okay, so traumatic brain injury for SWCC retired Brian McCrea. The average SWCC operator logs 3,000 hours of boat time per deployment cycle. Roche's 94 study conducted underway studies on NSW fast boats for a period of 6 days, covering 36 hours, which totaled 8,610 wave impacts ranging from 2 to 25 Gs. Of these 8,610 wave impacts, 4,496 impacts ranged above 5 Gs. 4,496 5G or greater impacts in 36 hours equals about 124 significant whiplash events in an hour. The average SWCC operator endures 124 possible whiplash events in an hour operating fast boats. The average SWCC operator possibly endures over 374,000 significant G-force impacts from wave pounding on SWCC boats in one deployment cycle. So if you take Brian's number of deployments, which is 5, multiplied by that number, you total out about 1,873,000 plus 1,000 significant full body impacts while wave slamming on SWCC boats, which causes adverse long-term effects of chronic orthopedic injury, whiplash, and mTBI. Okay, so summary of operator syndrome, all the symptoms for retired SWCC operator Brian McCrea. Etologically speaking, Brian is a 49-year-old retired SWCC operator as of right now, February 2023. He has 15 years of SWCC boat service, 5 SWCC deployments, and logged in 15,000 hours of SWCC boat time, causing 1.8 million significant full body impacts while weight pounding on SWCC boats. Brian has over 16 plus symptoms of mTBI and the nexus of operator syndrome symptoms. He endured whiplash, mental fatigue, confusion, and orthopedic injuries from weight pounding at significant G-forces from full body weight pounding exposure. Brian is actively pursuing an assessment at Tulane or home base for TBI and numerous post-concussion symptoms which impede his quality of life. Long-term effects of mTBI and major orthopedic injuries are debilitating for SWCC operators like Brian. Brian does not have a 100% disability rating from the VA. According to Brian, when he was a young SWCC operator, first getting on SWCC boats, he did not have any significant mental, physical, or emotional impairments compared to now after 15 years of being on SWCC boats. He believes the TBI and orthopedic injuries and symptoms are due to weight pounding on fast boats. And Brian does not have a history of contact sports. So here are the conclusions from this ongoing project. To date, I've done 20 interviews or looked at records of former SWCC operators. 100% of SWCC operators interviewed so far have significant TBI exposure contributing to post-concussion symptoms. 100% of SWCC operators interviewed so far experience full body weight pounding. They experience whiplash, orthopedic injury from SWCC boat operations proven to cause mental, emotional, and physical injury. 100% of SWCC operators interviewed so far who were never diagnosed with TBI before the TBI protocols were implemented lack VA ratings for service-connected injuries due to SWCC fast boat service. And the VA contends these issues were not service-connected for the majority of us because they were never claimed while on active duty. All SWCC operators who attended NICO while on active duty have VA ratings for TBI and other PCS symptoms. So you can see the difference there. There's a whole group of guys who did all the time on the boats, never knew anything about traumatic brain injury, weight pounding, was never seen by medical, never did a claim, and they don't have anything for traumatic brain injury. And then you fast forward to the time when SPEC War implemented all the TBI protocol, and then you start to see all these guys go to NICO and Intrepid Spirit, Home Base, and all these other programs. They all end up with their TBI ratings and everything else. So there's two different SWCC operators right there who are retired. Information in this presentation provides evidence Brian was a SWCC operator on SWCC fast boats for multiple deployments, and the aggregate of data collected in these interviews connect long-term TBI and post-concussion syndrome and orthopedic injury to SWCC boat service. There's definitely a trend as you look at all the guys that I've interviewed with all of these symptoms and orthopedic injuries. Most importantly, thousands of former retired SWCC operators still suffer from long-term mTBI major orthopedic injury without acknowledgement or help from the VA or the DoD. There remains a gap in TBI research on this particular peer group, and there needs to be research done. References for the SWCC TBI are listed in my presentation titled SWCC TBI, which is posted on my YouTube page, and there's a link to it right there. Thank you. Have a good day.